Here we go. Here we go. Okie dokie. Right, let's get up there. Excellent. Obviously, let's just get this all set up. Beautiful. Obviously, it's been a real sad weekend for sport. Um, and I'm gonna, start talking about obviously what happened at Leicester City, and obviously what happened with Glenn Hoddle. And I don't know what it is, but it seems that both, I think, were possibly avoidable. Glenn Hoddle's obviously been doing a lot of media work and still has his academy. He's been doing a lot of work, and I think possibly, um, you know, this seems to happen a lot with ex-professionals, especially football, who have these kind of health issues, heart attacks. So we could look at this sport, especially football, looking after its ex-stars, making sure that their health is good after they retire. Hello, and obviously we had the Leicester City incident with the helicopter and the unfortunate death of 5 people, including the Leicester City owner. I can't help but think that the rules governing helicopters at stadiums are going to be changed because of this. Yeah, my thoughts on that. I can't help but think that the rules are going to be changed on whether helicopters are allowed to use and land within stadiums and be around unless they're police and emergency services. I think obviously the crash team investigation, that's obviously got to do its thing. It'd be wrong of us to speculate because obviously it was so unexpected. Clearly that the helicopter had landed safely and taken off and landed safely. Before it was the newer of the 2 helicopters that was owned by Leicester City's owner. Other than that, until the crash team investigation and the police conclude their investigation, it'd be wrong really to speculate. But I do think the rules will be changed on future usage of helicopters around stadiums. Had that helicopter landed and taken off a lot earlier and crashed in that car park, the fatalities could have been a lot higher. I think it's also overshadowed the whole weekend of sport. There was some great sport on Saturday, and it's a difficult one to really talk about. I think we don't know enough facts on the situation that happens. And air crash investigations can take months, if not years, to fully conclude what actually caused the fatalities that day. Celtic, yeah, I mean, look, I think those 4 teams, any one of those 4 teams going into that semi-final weekend could be the cup champions. I think Celtic, yep, okay, they win a one-off game. Hearts are still top of the Scottish Premier League, so I don't know what trophy means more. Rangers losing to Aberdeen, I think Aberdeen, again, this is their opportunity for silverware. But the way the whole build-up to those semi-finals was just a mess. The fact that they tried to double-head it was a disaster. Then they, tried to not get out of it, and they got out of it. And the organisation of that whole weekend, I think, has detracted from the weekend. But they're like 4 of the best teams in Scotland at the moment, and I think any one of those 4 teams will obviously be league champions come the end of the year. It's a one-off game, a knockout competition. It's like a one-off game. If that had been played the following weekend, Hearts could have won. So it is a lottery when it comes down to cup competitions. It's all about what happens on the day, the conditions, a variety of things. But honestly, I think what do football fans want more out of their team? A league title or a cup title? What do they want more? Celtic haven't had the best start of the season. Rangers have been good, and I think the Gerrard effect it has been positive. Hearts have obviously themselves had a really good start. Aberdeen have been, again, iffy start, much like Celtic. But getting to a final, I think they're going to aim to beat Celtic. I think they have enough to beat Celtic in the final. I think Aberdeen just want silverware. And I think every Scottish football fan wants Celtic to lose that final. I think it'd be probably better for the sport in Scotland if Celtic were to lose that final. Of that, I have no doubt. I think Celtic's artificial dominance, and that is part of the problem because of Rangers' off-field issues. And then Rangers obviously artificial dominance because they were cooking the books for over a decade. I think Scottish football needs some new winners getting silverware because there are issues within the sport of governance and finances and getting fans interested. Well, I don't like the NBA. I just don't like basketball. We were basically required to play it at school for a couple of years, and because it was one of those compulsory sports for a period of time at school. I didn't like being forced to do a sport that I didn't enjoy. I never really enjoyed playing it. I'm a passable fan of watching. I will casually, watch a game, but I think because I didn't enjoy playing it at school, I could never really get into it. I've got friends who play it. I mean, and they enjoy it, and that's fine. It's just not a sport that I enjoy, and it's just a personal preference. And that's my honest opinion. It's just a personal preference. I know there are people who enjoy basketball. I'm not saying it's a sport you shouldn't be involved in, but personally, I never really enjoyed the sport playing. And if I can't enjoy playing the sport, I also would not enjoy watching the sport as well. But the LeBron James one, though, I think the money he's on is just stupid. I think the contract he's on, I think he's the most well-paid sportsman before endorsements. His basic salary means he's paid the most, and that's before his sponsorship deals. This is, I think, an issue with basketball. Yes, they have a very good salary cap system, and yes, every team is making money, and the value of the league is massive, and the poorest team is still valued at $1 billion US. So the league itself is in a healthy financial position. I don't think that necessarily justifies players being paid so much, silly amounts of money. Yeah, he's one of the best players of all time. Of course he is. But does that mean he's justified getting paid so much? I don't know. It's my personal opinion. I don't watch enough basketball to have, I would say, an opinion on it that would be seen as valid by other people. But it is what it is. I don't watch enough of the NBA or basketball in general to form a decent opinion. It's not a sport that I just enjoy. It's just something that I don't enjoy watching or playing. I'll casually watch. I'll happily watch any sport and casually flick through if there's nothing on the TV or if I can't find anything on the internet to watch. I will watch. It's just I don't necessarily enjoy it as much as other sports that are more accessible in this country. Because I live in the UK, so more accessible, and things like that. I do know a lot about it, but I was brought up in the generation of the Space Jam and the Michael Jordans of this world. That was my generation of youth. But I know a lot about a lot of sports. It does help to read up on these things and discuss things with sport-minded people and what your views are on LeBron James's contract, for example, or the fact that Golden State Warriors, Miami Heat, these teams that just basically have money to throw around and basically bought the NBA title. That's basically what the NBA is. If you've got the money to throw around, you just put a dream team together. They win a couple of trophies for you, a couple of titles for you, and I think that's basically the problem with the NBA is, yes, the salary cap works, and yes, they are the best paid athletes in the world. Are they the best athletes in the world on physicality? Probably not, but that's my personal opinion. Celtic, yeah, Okay, Celtic, they may have hit a little purple patch. That doesn't mean that they're going to win the treble. I just think that there are a lot of issues with Celtic off the field, their lack of investment in the transfer window, the issues with contracts with players, Brendan Rodgers being found out for the average manager he is. He doesn't cut it in any other league. That's my opinion. If he's coaching anywhere else in Europe, he doesn't cut it. He's not winning all these trophies. He's a nobody. But the fact they are getting a little bit of form in makes it really fun to look at the Scottish Premier League and the competitive nature that it's become this season, which is good. But at the end of the day, Scottish football's got a long way to go to reach the heights it had in the 70s, the 80s, and into the 90s, where they could. Scottish league teams that were competing in Europe could field decent sides that could actually compete. It's been a long time since Scottish football's had those heights. They haven't qualified for a major tournament for 20 years. That does suggest there is a deep problem. The fact that Wales and Northern Ireland have qualified for tournaments and been in the running in playoffs to qualify for tournaments in Scotland haven't been close. I mean, they have smaller populations, they have less professional teams, yet they can field better sides and better player development. That does say that there is an issue with Scottish football at youth level, and it could be a generational thing where they just don't have that quality of player coming through. But at the same time, it's also grassroots and funding and money and TV rights, and there's a lot of things going on with Scottish football at the moment. As highlighted by the shambles that was the plans to double head the League Cup semi-finals at Hampden. It just shows that the poor governance of the sport in Scotland and the league in Scotland, and the fact that fans are held in contempt by the people meant to be governing the game. It just highlights a lot of the issues with Scottish football. A lot of it comes down to governance and where the money's distributed to. Finance is a big issue. It's a big talking point in Scottish football and has been for several decades now. That ain't going to go away. There are ways they could fix the problem or at least alleviate some of the issues, but the governance of the game is shocking. Miami Heat, they're an interesting topic, the Miami Heat. They were a successful team and they still did not pack out their arena. I don't know what it is with teams in the Miami metro area of a professional nature. Let's just hope David Beckham's MLS franchise, when they do play their first competitive game, that they do actually manage to sell tickets. For some obscene reason, Miami's had some very successful teams in a multitude of sports, never can sell out an arena with actual attendance. Paid attendance, yes. Actual attendance, no. They never seem to have a packed arena. And this brings up the point of actual attendance versus paid attendance. Now, paid attendance is all that corporate crap that I hate, with all the corporate seats. Oh yeah, all these businesses and sponsors getting loads of tickets to give to their staff, and the staff never turn up, but they're paid for. Versus actual attendance, so you or me who want to get a ticket but can't because all the corporate tickets have been sold. It's a toss off. Lots of fans are on waiting lists to get tickets but can't because the corporate seats go unseated, but they're paid for. But that's a big talking point in sport, is the paid attendance, actual attendance debate, and whether there should be less corporate seats given out. Larsons and Laudrups. Scottish football's had some great players over the years. Has developed domestically some great players. Not only just had the great players play in the Scottish League in the 80s and the 90s, but also developed some really good talent over the years that has played, not in Scotland but in England and into Europe as well. The issue again has been that that not kicking on. Scotland had a very, very good national setup through the 60s, 70s, 80s, and into the 90s. They were regularly producing high quality players. They were out qualifying England at tournaments. They were getting to more tournaments than England were. The 70s, the Scottish national side was a really good side. They got to international tournaments and then they fell flat a little bit, but they were regularly out qualifying England to get to these tournaments. Something that went horribly, horribly wrong and it's very hard to put the exact finger on, oh, it was this issue or that issue or this happened or that happened. But the fact that you've only had 3 teams win the league title since the mid 80s says something about how uncompetitive this league actually is. And 2 of those 3 teams are in the League Cup final. That just says where Scottish football really is. Obviously the Old Firm in Glasgow and Aberdeen. That's basically where the powerhouses of Scottish football are. And they just take turns to have a decade of dominance or a period of a decade of dominance, and then another one. It's just rotate the title around the 3 teams basically. If you hold on a second, I'm just going to adjust my headset. That's better. I'm not like sweating like a pig. Oh God, my cable's all tangled. Right. Okay. Where were we? But yeah, no. The issues with Scottish football run deep. It's not going to be a small fix. It's going to be a long term fix. It has to be. They have to, sit back and assess where the league is, where the sport is, why they're not developing these quality players anymore, why they're not attracting your Henrik Larssons, your Laudrup brothers, your Paul Gascoignes, why they're not attracting that player to play, in Scotland. Yes, you may ask about Red Dead 2. I literally was playing it an hour ago, playing it all day. I'm about 18% of the way through the storyline, and it's a bit different to what I was expecting. I think it's a good prequel to the first. It does give backstories to other characters, such as the main character last time, John Marston. So in that respect, it does fill in a good backstory about where the first game starts and ends. This happens a decade or so before, and it gives a great backstory. I was expecting multiple player usage there, like multiple character usage. We haven't got that. So that's something I was a little bit surprised about, considering the amount of development put in. The map is huge. The gameplay free roam map is absolutely massive. It's a little bit trickier than the first game, or the Red Dead one. The map is bigger, but what I do like is the city of Blackwater, which is obviously the main town in the first one, is exactly the same. They've actually kept the same layout. They've kept the cemetery in the same place, the railway station, the wharf, all that kind of stuff. They've really just really improved the graphics. Obviously, the map's bigger. The beginning bit, the cinematic shots are amazing as well. The cinematic shots are really, really good. The gameplay mechanics, yeah, they've really looked at the development of the GTA Red Dead Redemption franchises, and the gameplay mechanics are basically exactly the same. They're from the same family of gameplay mechanics. Brilliant. I can't fault them on that. Yes, it's difficult. It's actually harder than I thought. So actually, it's harder than Red Dead 1, which I like a challenging game. I find if a game is far too easy, I don't enjoy it as much. I like being challenged. I haven't played enough of the game to give like a proper in-depth review on it, but I played enough to enjoy it. We've come across some pretty interesting characters. We have come across the Pinkerton agents, one of whom you do meet in the original. So I'm assuming there's going to be some kind of side story arc at some point between Red Dead 1 and Red Dead 2, which is a prequel, obviously. At some point there could be an expansion pack or the online, which obviously we're waiting for. I can see somewhere, a Red Dead 3 at some point going off on a side shoot and then coming back in, because at the moment there's a massive gap, between this one and that one, and a good period of time in the timeline and the time frame. But it's going to be interesting. I will say this: looking at, so I will do a more in-depth review on Red Dead 2 possibly tomorrow morning. I'll have to do some more gaming on it. I have to explore the map more. I have explored the map a fair bit. There is a lot of locations I haven't found yet. There's a lot of locations I have not found. So it's going to be really interesting to explore a bit more. I have got the Ultimate Edition. I had to, so I paid nearly 80 quid for the game. So I've got some add-on pack as well. I would recommend getting that and investing that extra 30 odd quid in the game. You do get extra stuff in the storyline as well, which is really cool. Just comes with a redeem code. You type that in and you get loads more free stuff. You get weapons packs, you get some free stuff, you get extra missions. So it is worth paying the extra money. The online isn't available yet. The online's not really a type of thing that I enjoy in how do I put it, the GTA universe or the Red Dead universe. I never really enjoyed online. I know a lot of people do. But the more I play it, the more the better the review I can give. But yeah, some of the characters we've met so far, yeah, they are filling in gaps in the plot line. And we'll see, how much further we get through it and how much the story develops, because there's going to be a few twists and turns that you're not expecting. I will definitely say that. The Tottenham Man City game, look at the Wembley pitch. It's in a shocking state. That's after 3 NFL games in 3 weeks. Obviously, Jacksonville Jaguars owner wanted to buy Wembley and put his NFL franchise in there. Yeah, Wembley is not up to scratch as a multi-use sports facility. It really isn't. It's in a shocking state. We've seen in the past Wembley used for rugby league, football, American football, rugby union. The pitch is not good enough for the modern day and age for a multi-purpose sports stadium. However, when I was a kid growing up, the Premier League used to play on pitches far worse than that. I think this is where football players have gone soft, and the game and sport in general has gone far too soft on. You got to play on what surface you got to play on. But Tottenham, Man City like passing the ball around a lot, so it's going to affect their game, and it may actually help Tottenham having Man City put off their game because of the state of the pitch. But I don't know. It will be more. I think it will be less of a classic passing game. I think it'd be more of a classic, old school, hopefully English style league game. I think at some point that has to happen. But the pitch, though, if this was meant to be one of the most modern stadiums ever. The pitch is a shocking state. Year on year, the Wembley pitch is a disgrace. So, all that money spent building the bloody thing, the pitch is nowhere clear up to standard at all. But we've got, Tottenham are going to be there at least till the new year. God knows what the state the pitch is going to be in after having Champions League games, England internationals, FA Cup games, you name it. It's going to have a lot of football played on it between now and the end of the season with the FA Cup final. It's going to be in a sorry state by the end of May. It's not good enough. Simple. So I think it may actually affect the quality of football that is seen tonight. But we'll have to wait and see what occurs, what happens. But it is a shocking stadium and a shocking pitch. There are Irish characters in it. I don't want to spoil too much for Red Dead 2 because there are people who obviously haven't played Red Dead Redemption 2 yet, or haven't bought it yet, or haven't played it yet, and I don't want to give any spoilers out. But there are Irish characters in it, and there is an Irish gang in it as well. So you will find possibly, but I don't want to ruin anything. I'm just saying I don't want to give any spoilers out. Partly, I haven't got through the game far enough, but I don't want to give any spoilers out because that would ruin it for a lot of people who haven't played the game yet. Yep, the League Cup is still obviously going as well. I think it's going to be interesting with the League Cup, who wins it. I think the cup competitions have been devalued over recent years, especially when the higher level teams that are in the Premier League and in the Championship don't pull out full their best available squad for the match day. I think that does devalue the competition somewhat. It'd be nice to actually see managers. You're told this is your squad for the season. That includes all cup competitions. This is what you got to work with. Work with it. I'm all for player rotation. I'm just hoping, that. Some of the teams looking at it take it more seriously than they have done in years past. Yes, I know Mike live streams often our live streams do clash. It is unfortunate, but I will say this: it's our friendly little competition. We always support each other when we can. If he pops in for a live stream, great. If I pop in a live stream for him, great as well. But I don't want to detract from his live stream because of my live stream. it is what it is. I had a bit of extra free time, and I wasn't aware he was live streaming, but occasionally our live streams do clash. And of course, the Man City Tottenham game is on, so here we're doing a live stream whilst watching that game. So it'd be interesting to see his thoughts on a lot of things. At the same time, I respect a lot of what he's done as a channel, and I feel very bad for him that he got rejected for monetization again, apparently for duplication of a video, which is a load of tosh, because I know his content, I know he makes it all himself. He's had no copyright violations, he's had no community strikes, much like myself, and he's been done over by the YouTube systems, which I feel are failing the smaller channels and the community as a whole. But I'm not going to go into the discussion on that point. I think I could get myself in trouble with YouTube if I did. Possibly, I think he mentioned something about it. If you notice by your name, you now have a blue spanner, which means you are now a moderator on the channel, because you've always asked some really good questions and discussed some good things without being a muppet, so you get a blue spanner. There are a lot of people obviously doing live streams tonight who have an interest in the Premier League. And obviously this weekend, the events of this weekend has overshadowed a lot of the sporting world and the wider, community of both Leicester and obviously, what happened to Glenn Hoddle as well. Of course, both incidents were, on BT Sport programs as well, which is really strange. People have talked about curses and things like that. BT Sport, I think, dealt with both instances very professionally. And Jake Humphrey was involved with both incidents. He was presenting the match day program at Leicester, and he was in the studio in the morning. Obviously, was doing the Football Saturday morning show with Glenn Hoddle, and then Glenn Hoddle collapsed there. So Jake Humphrey, while I don't rate him as a news presenter or a sports presenter, he acted very professionally over the Saturday 24-hour period of chaos. I wouldn't call Watford a little club anymore. I think they, have had some tough times. They fully deserve to be where they are because, they've got the right club mentality, the right philosophy, the right playing style. They've recruited really well. They've also sold players really well, don't quite necessarily fit in or want to move on, and they replace them very, very effectively. I'm not surprised that Bournemouth and Watford, two of the little clubs in the Premier League, are actually so so competent and so and doing so well. It's no surprise to me. Every season, Watford and Bournemouth get regularly labelled as relegation fodder, and every season they go, "No, we're not relegation fodder. We're better than what you think." That's why players who play for both clubs are deservedly now being, looked at for international appearances, and international squads are looking more at their players now, and they're improving year on year because they have, competent off-field ownership. They have competent managers. They have the right culture. They don't tolerate, someone who isn't putting the effort in. I might have predicted Watford to possibly. I have to double check my prediction video now, but I think I had Watford in the top half of the table. I believe I did. I think it was Wolves that I predicted to finish lower. But no, honestly, I do think Watford is a top 10, top 8, top 6 side. I honestly think they can get European qualification this season. Obviously, it all depends on how the busy festive period goes, but I honestly believe Watford have got what it takes to crack European football, qualify directly for the Europa League, have a good cup run. Anything's possible. I honestly believe that. I honestly believe anything's possible. And, I don't think have surpassed expectations, but they're building year on year. And I think they fully deserve where they are right now. They fully deserve where they are right now. Scunthorpe United, relegation. Well, you've already said, I say this. I look at all the teams that got relegated from the leagues they were in last year. So every team in the Football League that got relegated, so from the Premiership down to League Two, every single one of those teams sacked their manager at least once. And Scunthorpe have already sacked a manager this season. So if we're going by that trend, it is a threat. Yeah, every team that sacked a manager and replaced a manager last year, who were relegated, every one of the relegation teams in every league last year had sacked a manager at least once. Yeah, constantly changing the guy who's in charge of the team doesn't mean you're going to be successful. I think we'll see what happens with what the teams that do get relegated and how often or how many managers have been sacked in those relegation places. I'm surprised we haven't had more dismissals now that we're in October and about to click into November. I am surprised that there aren't more dismissals. Last year was a really bad year for managerial replacement sackings, both north and south of the border. I am surprised by the fact there's been so few so far. But yeah, I think sacking a manager too early in the season, there's too much of a period of time between September, early October, and the transfer window opening. And sacking a manager after the transfer window again, I don't think it's ever a good time to sack or replace a manager in a season. I think there needs to be some kind of a bit more stability in managerial terms. It is what it is, though. I mean, I do think football last year went through a lot of managers. I think that was the worst season for football sackings I think we've ever had. I know that's definitely in my lifetime. I don't know about in the past. Maybe that was the peak. I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the managerial merry-go-round that is football. I am surprised the Premier League hasn't had a sacking yet. Warnock, Benitez, and Mourinho, I think, are my three favourites to get the chop. But we'll have to see what happens in that regard. Right. Yeah, a lot of questions there on football-related topics. I think football's had a very dark weekend. Very, very dark weekend with the events that happened on Saturday in a very short space of time. I think, obviously, we won't know the full details of what happens on Saturday especially at Leicester for quite some time. Any kind of air accident investigation can take a lengthy period of time. It sometimes can take years. So we don't know the full details yet. But that's going to have a massive impact on Leicester City. What kind of impact that is, we don't know. But that's going to be something very interesting to look at in the weeks and months to come, and how the squad recover, how the fan base recovers, and how the club recovers from what happened on Saturday. I've been asked in the comment sections of videos to talk about it, and that's as much as I'm going to talk about what happened on Saturday. The Glenn Hoddle thing is a health issue. Whether you think of Glenn Hoddle, it's a big story because he's a big figure of the game, not just here in England but around Europe. One of the best midfielders I think the country's ever produced. One of the best players of his generation in the 80s. He was one of those trailblazers for English football where he actually did decide to play on the continent at times. So he did take that leap of faith and actually play abroad, which became a trend amongst English players in the 70s and 80s. A lot of players started doing it, but because he was one of the big names who did it, a whole wave of English players who had already made it in the international scene by having appearances at international level decided to take that leap of faith and play in Europe. And he was one of the trendsetters for that when he played at Marseille. He helped build the foundations for Chelsea in the 90s, which helped them then go on to start winning those FA Cups that they did in the 90s. And which led to the Abramovich era a decade later. So on that respect, you know, he helped rebuild a team, and if it wasn't for him, I don't think Chelsea would be in the place they are now. And people tend to forget that he was player manager at Chelsea for a period of time. After his time at Chelsea, his managerial career, he obviously ended up at England as England manager. And how that ended, I think, is the most important part of his career. How his time at England ended, I think, that's what a lot of people remember him for, was the time he lost the England job. But that's why he divides opinion, is how he lost the England job. And of course, there's a lot of people who watch this channel who weren't alive in 1998, 99 when he did get, sacked by England. He made some off the cuff comments about disabled people, and even back in 1998, 99, that could get you sacked. And that's what's defined him going forward, is that moment. As a commentator, I don't think he's got necessarily the personality of the voice to be a commentator. I think that's something that he's been criticised for in his commentary. That he comes across in this rather bland, monotone kind of voice. He doesn't really have necessarily the most passionate of voices as a commentator, which is what I think fans like, is that exuberant passion of a commentator. So he has been criticised for his commentary at international games and in the FA Cup and things like that. But all told, he's one of the best footballing brains that this country's ever produced, be it playing or managing. He brought players like Michael Owen and David Beckham more into the England fold and gave them their breakthrough roles more. He trusted players like Beckham with key responsibilities when they were young. He gave his debut to Michael Owen. He had some good leaders that he kept around those younger players, such as Paul Ince, Tony Adams, and he obviously entrusted these veteran players with some big responsibilities as well. I think he had a great opportunity in '98, and yes, we lost that game to Argentina, but he had a good foundation to work on, and then subsequent managers have not kicked on with the foundation that Hoddle had put in place at England that he had done at Chelsea before. Post England, it's not been as good managerial-wise for Hoddle, but up to that point, brilliant. But there we go. That's basically my view on Glenn Hoddle. He is a divisive figure. He is a controversial figure, but he's one of the best midfielders this country's ever produced. He's also one of the best footballing brains this country has ever produced as well. It is a shame what's happened to him. It does happen to a lot of ex-pros. There's a big trend of ex-professionals after they retire. It seems to be a high percentage of ex-football players seem to have heart attacks or heart issues and strokes. There seems to be a high proportion of ex-football players than other sports or other stratas of society. So that's something that the FA could possibly look at in investing in, and UEFA having a look at as well, and try and do some research into why that seems to be an issue. But he had been working hard. He'd been doing a lot of media commitments, a lot of travelling. Still had his football academy in Spain as well. So he was keeping himself busy post actively being involved in football managing. He kept himself busy for the last 20 years. So maybe he'd overworked himself. We shall see. There we go. Right. Okay. It's been mostly a football-based live stream, but there are other sporting things going on at the moment. Obviously, Lewis Hamilton, I haven't spoken about his 5th world title, but you got to look at F1 right now, and is it the most competitive championship at the moment with the regulations of the cars? Probably not. There's too many client teams and sister teams, and I think the rules are basically weighted in favour of 2 or 3 big teams, and then the smaller teams get shafted. But he has won a 5th world title. F1 has always had this, is the question, is the champion deserving of his title? The rules and regulations don't help the sport. I think obviously the sport is in a new era post Bernie Ecclestone with Liberty Media. We will see what happens with the new rules package that's coming in the next year or so. but he's won 5 titles. Will he go on and beat Schumacher's 7? I think time will tell. We shall see. If the cars become more even, then it really does come down to driver skill, and I do believe there are other drivers in that paddock who possibly on their day, given equal equipment, and it comes down to purely more driver skill, could possibly beat him. But I think F1 is starting, for me at least. I did a video where I thought F1 was boring. I've gone off the sport, or that part of motorsport, over the years. I find it less interesting now than I did before. I'm less into F1 than I was when I was younger. I just don't enjoy it as much. It's a very predictable who's going to win the race. There's only a handful of drivers who are ever in a chance of winning a race, not because they're the most talented, but because they've got the best equipment, because the rules are weighted in that way to the bigger teams with the bigger budgets. The smaller teams don't get necessarily their equal share of revenues, and there's all sorts of politics behind it. And, that is something that, again, really puts me off the sport. It's too corporate for me, but that's my personal view on F1. But yes, he has won a 5th title. Notice I haven't done a video about it because I don't care. But there you go. That's me talking about Lewis Hamilton. That's that done. That's that out the way. Thank you. Obviously, I went to the ice hockey last night, and that was a good game. It meant I missed the last, I think, 5 minutes of the NFL game at Wembley. Not that it really mattered, because when I was leaving to go out, Jacksonville were losing and they lost. So yay, as I predicted they would. But something I've noticed, obviously, when I did my NFL video yesterday, some comments were made. People made comments. One was racist, so I'm not responding to that one. But one of the comments was the NFL stands for National Felon League, and there is a grain of truth in that. The NFL does have an issue with its athletes, its star players, committing crimes. The NFL has a massive problem with players committing crime. We've had Michael Vick with, obviously, the animal cruelty charges. We've had some players a lot of domestic violence in there. There's been a lot of narcotic violations in there with possession. There's been murders in there. There have been players who have murdered their partners. American football seems to have an issue with its players committing some really heinous crimes. The fact that 4 players just didn't want to pay a bar tab is actually one of the least offensive crimes that have been committed. I did have a little chuckle about it. But it's not a good image that American football has, and it's not a good image for the sport, and it's not a good image for the league, and it's not a good image for the team. And Jacksonville, I don't think, for me, winning hearts and minds. I really don't think that, with how their players acted before a game and then they're going to lose a game, the fact that they went unpunished by the team, and this is what the commentators were constantly talking about, was these players are going unpunished, is because Jacksonville haven't won a game in 5 weeks, also crippled by injury. These were 4 players they could not afford to discipline because of the injury crisis that they have. So, I think they've damaged the reputation of their team, their organisation, which, they're not a good team anyway, but that's my personal opinion. It is what it is. Good evening. Good to see you on the old chat there. I hope you guys have had a good weekend. Obviously, you won your League Cup semi-final against Rangers, so it's good to see you. That's going to be an interesting final against Celtic. Hopefully the build-up is not as chaotic as the build-up to the semi-finals. And I think it's Aberdeen's best chance for silverware this season. Unless their league form significantly improves, I think the League Cup in Scotland is Aberdeen's best chance for silverware. And if they get their hands on that, I think that can be, the catalyst for Hearts to possibly win the title, or Hibs to give it a go. And I think that's what Scottish football needs, is a non-old firm team winning some silverware this season, and preferably the league itself. But again, Aberdeen are the 3rd most successful team in Scottish football history, so would it be a good thing if Aberdeen won it? Possibly, but maybe not. But it is good to see you in the chat, and I'm looking forward to the questions you have. The live streams lately, we've had some really good questions. We've had some really good discussing points. We've discussed some really good topics and some good things. So let's keep it up. So let's see what questions people have. I'll be interested to hear what questions people have, because I think I have spoken a fair bit tonight and gone on a bit, and it'd be nice to see what other questions and topics you guys want me to talk about, because at the end of the day, I mean, these live streams work because of you guys. So it's nice to hear what your views are and what your thoughts are, and what you want to talk about. I think okay. I think the state of the pitch will have an effect. I think people are underestimating the state of that pitch. I think that's what 3 NFL games have done. Imagine having a full 8-game season where the NFL, let's say, puts 2 teams having 4 home games there each or something, or plays a whole regular season, 1 game a weekend for X amount of games. Or imagine a team being transplanted there and playing half a regular season. So that's 8 home games. So that's 1 every 2 weeks, pretty much on average. That was after 3 weeks. Imagine 8 out of 16 games, for example, being played on that pitch. There's 8 NFL games played on that pitch. That pitch would be wrecked. And look at it. That's after 3 games. Imagine a whole season of NFL football. That's actually quite early in the game. That's quite concerning. If you're a Tottenham fan, if you want Tottenham to win, that's concerning. I think Tottenham are being undone by their stadium issue, and they are being undone by their lack of movement in the transfer market. I think they don't have the squad depth that they should have, and that's partly because they decided not to sign any players and bet the house and spend and put all their money into the stadium build. I think that's a big mistake by Daniel Levy there. Big mistake. I think Tottenham are going to pay the price this season because they got less squad depth, and their Champions League campaign's been a disaster so far. So I think they are paying the price for not investing enough in themselves over the last 12 months. I think they really are starting to pay the price now. Some of their key players have played a lot of football because they haven't had the chance to rotate them or rest them or give them that night off or give them that 50 minutes rather than playing them for the full 90. I think they are starting to pay the price for that lack of squad depth that other teams around them seem to have. Apparently, yes. Apparently, it is just Scottish viewers at the moment. I have no idea why, but apparently I'm very popular in Scotland. So, hey, is it because, I seem to just be as grumpy as you guys? I don't know. Is it because I've got a lot of Scottish friends? I don't know. I know I've got a lot of Scottish viewers, and it's kind of nice not having to talk about English clubs all the time, because I find the Premier League and the Championship, I don't really enjoy football as much as I used to. Part of the problem with that is, now we've lost the internationals because they're on Sky now because this UEFA Nations League, which is a pile of crap. It is interesting the fact that there are so many fans of Scottish football clubs. Whether you all live in Scotland or not, I don't know, but there's the fact that there are so many Scottish football fans of clubs in Scotland regular on our live streams. I find that really interesting. But of course, in the analytics, they keep changing the YouTube Creator Studio. So I can't tell who's from England, Wales, Scotland, or Northern Ireland. It doesn't let me. It says UK. But I am interested on the viewership figures over the last month or so. Heavily dominated by the British audience, which hasn't always been the case in the channel's history. But I'm really surprised by the amount of people in Scotland who subscribe. I know I've done a lot of videos on Scottish football, but it's interesting that, the dynamic of the viewers and the dynamic of where they're from and what they like. I'm really, really surprised that I've got Rangers and Celtic fans in the same chat who can get along as well, because I know the sectarianism within Scottish football, which is really concerning, and it's still there. And Rangers and Celtic as football clubs should be ashamed that they're not tackling such a big social problem in the UK. And it's more of a bigger social problem than people realise in a lot of towns and cities, is there's still this sectarianism. It's not just a Scottish problem, it's a British problem. And the Scottish football clubs such as Rangers, Celtic, Aberdeen, Hearts, Hibs, all these clubs have a duty to stamp it out. And they don't. And if they are trying to, their efforts are so half-hearted. It's actually a shame. It's disgraceful. That's one thing I will, you know, that's one thing in the modern age that I find really disheartening about football is the sectarianism, or the racism, or the homophobia. It's 2018, people, nearly 2019, and a lot of football fans, a minority, are still, you know, knuckle dragging cave dwellers in my eyes. Hello, yeah, look, we've now got a Kilmarnock fan. We've got St Johnstone, Aberdeen, Rangers. We've got Celtic in here. You know, I am really surprised by the amount of Scottish viewers. And considering how negative I am about the state of Scottish football as well, I'm really surprised the amount of Scottish viewers that regularly watch and get involved in the live streams and watch the videos. But no, I am critical of Scottish football because of the state of the league structure and because of the state of the finances of the game, because of the state of the Scottish FA, which is a disgraceful organisation, and the Scottish Professional Football League. Again, you know, that's the governance of the game in Scotland is a shambles. But it's amazing that you guys from Scotland, you know, want to be involved with the channel and want to, you know, contribute to the live streams and the questions. And I know I don't know everything about Scottish football. I don't. I really don't. I don't know everything about Scottish football. I don't know everything about the ins and outs of every single club, who the managers are of these teams, you know, necessarily their history. But it's great to see that every Scottish fan on here, or a fan of a Scottish club, you guys all seem to get on, which is amazing, because I know when it comes to football, especially in Scotland, or the areas of Scotland people are from, there is that sectarian element, or there is that element of dislike between parts of a city or cities in Scotland. And it's great to see that, you know, there is a positive atmosphere we have here and a positive environment that has been created here. And it's not always the case. And it gives me a bit of hope that at some point the sectarianism or the homophobia or the racism can be stamped out, not just of Scottish football, but of football in general. But it is a dream, I hope. But it is good to see hashtag Scottish gang. It is good to see, though, you know, a positive kind of you know, grouping of fans who otherwise would be rivals. And it's something that gives me hope for the future, not just for Scottish, as I say, not just for Scottish football, but for football in the UK as a whole. Because some of the comments I've seen on Twitter in relation to what happened to Glenn Hoddle and in relation to what happened at Leicester City are absolutely disgusting and vile. There have been some really distasteful, disgusting comments about a very tragic weekend this weekend in football. Absolutely vile. I see them on every Twitter feed that I can think of. When it comes to a major sporting story, there's always some vile comments. But what really disgusted me was the amount of vile comments to do with Glenn Hoddle and to do with, you know, what happened at Leicester City. And, you know, it does sadden me that it's 2018 and this kind of tribal knuckle-dragging mentality is still there. It's a minority, and, you know, it doesn't sell the sport to a wider audience in a positive light. It really shows up how classless a lot of people are, and at the same time, how classless some of the clubs are by not stamping this out from their fan base and saying we do not accept this. These people are not welcome. But it is good to see you guys. You know, I think I'm going to have to look at the Scottish League table on the eve of the transfer market, because, you know, a lot has happened since I did that video. It's the same with the English Premier League as well. There's a lot's happened since I did my Premier League predictions on winning the European places and relegation and where teams finish. And I will say this: sports predicting is a fool's game. If last year in sport, the last 18 months in sport has taught me anything, it's that sport has become more unpredictable than it used to be, by a long way. But this is why I enjoy sport, because it's unpredictable. And, you know, people ask me to do prediction videos, and I don't normally do them, because it's the joy of sport is it's unpredictable. Completely unpredictable. It, but you know, it is what it is. Well, let's see what questions you guys have, because I want to keep this live stream a bit shorter tonight than I normally would. I just had a bit of free time because I want to get back to playing Red Dead Redemption 2 for starters, and I want to get a bit further into that game so I can give you guys a cool review onto the other channel that I have, and I've been into my gaming a lot lately as well, especially since the laptop broke and had to get fixed. I spent a lot of time on the Xbox, and I played a lot of Assassin's Creed Origin, Odyssey, and I'm now playing Red Dead Redemption 2. So I've got another game review to do, which I have promised. Okay, Ben, what you've basically described there is an issue that League One and League Two have, and that's down to how many games are televised in those lower levels of the game. And the issue is, on Football Focus on Saturday morning, I forget, I think they're at Notts County, and Notts County are a team that are struggling in League Two. And they've had to replace their manager, of course. They sacked Kevin Nolan, they brought Harry Kewlin. I can't remember who was a representative of the club, but basically the club representative said, "We are making no money in this league." And when further questioned, he said most clubs in League One and League Two are operating either with a very fine profit margin or at a heavy loss, or somewhere in between. There's not a lot of money available in the lower leagues, and the TV rights, and because it's not TVs, a TV televised match, the TV rights is a big sticking point, and the fact that running costs are a big sticking point, and the fact that the distribution of funds in football and the supposed trickle down effect isn't happening. And so you are raising a key point there of the lack of television rights, and that's something that is really, really sticking with a lot of fans at the lower level. Is that you've got the 3 p.m. blackout on a Saturday, for example, which some sports providers try and break as much as possible, and others stick to. And then you've got obviously the allocation of what teams seem to get favourable TV rights, and there is a hint of favouritism towards certain clubs, from Manchester getting them. But no, it does raise an issue that in League One and League Two, and in the lower levels of Scottish football, there isn't a lot of money. A lot of teams are operating on a very fine profit margin. We're talking not a lot of money profit post-tax or pre-tax. And for the most part, a lot of them are actually losing money or operating at a loss post-tax, which isn't great. And now we have a German football fan, so there is some balance restored. I've not just been watched by Scotsmen. But no, there are issues with finance in the lower levels of the sport, not just in the UK, but across the board. Hence why so many teams really desperately want to get to the wealthier leagues and the Championship and ultimately the Premier League, because of the amount of money available. But even then, Championship clubs are regularly struggling with finances. Very few of them make a turn of profit pre-tax, and even fewer turn a profit post-tax. Hello, Lazar ID. Yes, you have been mentioned on my live stream. I haven't got around to checking your channel out, but I hear that you do similar stuff to me, so it's interesting, and I like having a friendly rivalry with similar channels, because I feel that having a friendly rivalry with similar channels can actually help both channels in the long run grow and develop a good community, something that we seem to have here. So I've heard a lot about your content. I haven't actually got around to watching your content yet, but I've heard a lot about it. You'll notice some of the people in this stream have their own channels as well, which one or two do, like Kemmel, who was on the stream earlier, and a guy called Mike. He's got his own channel, so it's always good to have that friendly rivalry and that friendly competition, which I think brings out the best in us. But I'll be happy to check your channel out. I'll be happy to subscribe and support, because I do believe, seeing how some of my other YouTube colleagues, I should call them, and I would class them as friends as well. I think the way we've driven each other to improve our content and to do stuff, the way some of them have been treated, especially Mike, by YouTube and the struggles they're facing, I think we have to support each other at this time. I really do. So I'm more than happy to sub back. I will sub back when the live stream is done. I want to focus on the live stream, but I'm interested to see what questions you have for me, and I'm also happy to give any advice or anything back that I can. It's Mike Talks Football. Tell him I sent him your way, his way. It's Mike Talks Football, and tell him that I sent you his way. He needs all the support he can get. He's doing a fair bit better than me, mind. He did overtake me quite a while ago in subs, but you know, I think he did have a big kick in the teeth last week when it came to being rejected for monetization. I think unfairly. He's got to wait another 20 odd days before he can reapply. He felt hard done by, but no, honestly, check Mike Talks Football. I would recommend it if you're especially into your football of all leagues. I believe he's doing a live stream right now on the Tottenham Man City game, so he'll be there keeping everyone up to date with the score and also discussing other football related topics. I on the other hand cover the whole lot. I cover all sports. So I think that's why I'm a little bit different to Kemal and Mike and others who have channels on who support. I am a Blackburn fan. I think he was asking the question at me, but we have a Man City fan here, so we're going to have some banter. Admittedly, Man City have more Premier Leagues than us, which is really annoying, and we only have the one. But it is good to have the banter, and it's good to have a wide and varied discussion base. I think this is what I enjoy my channel is I understand you are one of the younger YouTubers out there. There is a guy who is a subscriber of mine who I also subscribe to, is a similar age, and his name is Kemal. If you look through the chat this evening, he's one of the first guys to ask a question. He's one of my moderators. I would again send you his way. I think he could give you some advice. He's been doing his YouTube now for a while, like you. He's about the same age. I think you guys could have a really good debate about football. He's a Chelsea fan. I know you're a Man City fan, so that could be an interesting debate and talking point about the pros and cons of both your teams. So I would send you his way. It's Kemal AA. So I'd advise you check him out as well. I think he could help you with your channel and vice versa. And you could support each other, much like you could support Mike as well, who really does need the support right now. I think he has been harshly treated by YouTube. I think he's been hard done by. And the more support you can give these guys, the better. Honestly, I really do mean that. Because it's a community here, we have to share the space, we have to share the viewers, but we also have to support each other and look out for each other. Because what I've found in the last few months is it's been more difficult to grow and to keep going. It's been harder since the monetization rules changed, and I think for most of this summer it's been a lot harder to be a YouTuber. The last 18 months have been really tough, I think, for all creators, be it if they've got big channels, medium sized, small channels, just starting out. It has been made a lot harder. And I just take your time, mate. Honestly, I mean, I won't be on live stream all night. I'm gonna probably go for another 10, 15 minutes. It's one of these. I don't really plan my live streams much anymore. I've got too much going on. So planning them is gone out the window. I have other things to do as well. So arranging them is gone a little bit haywire. And this is why I like hardcore football fans, not the glory supporters. I cannot stand glory supporters who are only in it because the team they've supported for a while have been winning for a while. I mean, this is why I'm not a big fan of Man United. A lot of their fans were only in it for the good times, and now we're seeing the true fans stick around and show their distaste for for what's going on at Man United right now. A lot of the Man City fans are Glory fans. What game am I playing? I am currently I'm just doing a live stream on sports, but I do have Red Dead Redemption 2, which I will be going back to after the live stream is over. I do have another channel where I do have game reviews on there called the History Boffin, which is in my channel's like list. So feel free to check that out. It's a smaller channel. This is predominantly a sports channel. I have done the odd review of film on here, but I now put all that on my other channel. I've done a review on Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and I basically completed the main story arc on that. There's still the artifact storyline of Atlantis to do on Assassin's Creed Odyssey. And again, I don't want to give any spoilers out to those who haven't completed the game or played the game. But it's more challenging than I thought. But it's actually fun being challenged in such a way on that game. It's testing my gaming ability, and I would say I'm an average gamer. I'm not a hardcore gamer. Red Dead Redemption 2 again, more difficult than I thought it was going to be. I like that. I've got about I've just knocked my laptop stand. That was almost fatal. Red Dead Redemption 2, I'm about 19% of the way through Red Dead Redemption 2. I've got a lot of the map to explore. I've done a bit of exploration on Red Dead Redemption 2. But again, far too early in the game to give a full review on it. I can just say it's pretty cool so far. There are some things that I weren't expecting, and there were some things that I were expecting that haven't showed up, and the things that I wasn't expecting that have turned up in the game. Pretty cool. But no, I'm more of a sport. This is my main channel. This is my sports channel. So if you want to subscribe here, feel free to do so. If you look at my channel list of linked channels and liked channels, just go on the History Boffin. That is my other channel. I only post basically once a week on there at the moment. I've sort of reached a point where I'm debating my next big video to do on that. That isn't a film or game review. I've got my whiteboard. If I can drag my whiteboard out, I've got my whiteboard down here. I haven't got the whiteboard out in a while. Oh God, oh grief! And try not to swear while I screw up. Oh God! So my little YouTube set is sort of in storage at the moment. Because when I go on the history channel, my history channel, I do get the whiteboard out. I do take a lot of notes, mostly for my benefit because my webcam isn't the best, so it sometimes is hard to read the writings. I've got to work out, get some more magnets done. I've got to get some more pens, which are over there. There's a few other bits and pieces I've got to do. I've got to also adjust my lighting so it's a bit brighter in here for the camera. But I only do really one video a week. It's not to everyone's cup of tea, and that's cool. But I've looked at a variety of things on there. And there are some interesting things going on right now that, I could look at. I've got a lot of films in my cabinet down here. I've got a massive film collection, so I've got a lot of DVDs to look through as well and do film reviews on a variety of films. So if you like your crime films, I've got Goodfellas, The Godfather trilogy, Heat, Ronin, a whole load of things like that. So there are a lot of things that I do on this channel and the other channel. But yeah, the whiteboard hasn't come out for about a month. I've had a few technical issues with things my end tech-wise. I've had issues with my phone, my laptop, my iPad. The whole thing has been a bit crazy the last month or so, but we are making progress. I don't always use the headset. I'm doing some experimentation, obviously, with this headset to see what the sound quality is like, whether it helps or hinders what I'm doing. So we'll have to have a little look at your responses to that. But yes, so both channels are actually in a good, healthy state at the moment. And I will be going back to play some more Red Dead Redemption 2 in a minute, so I can then get a better feel for the game and give a better review tomorrow on that, because I'm still in the early stages of playing it. I am looking forward a little bit to trying out the online Goku versus Deadpool. Deadpool, because he's like immortal. Unless you actually blow his head up, he's not going to die. So Deadpool would have been that one for me. So I don't know how that one got on here, Goku versus Deadpool, but Deadpool for me. I'll place money on that. Again, I don't watch enough of League One and League Two to to know enough about the players at that level. But when a player moves on to another club in the same league, and then comes back to his former club, it can be hit and miss. I've seen it where a player's been at a club for a long time, moves on for whatever reason, and then comes back to play against his old team, and the reaction isn't always as positive. Look at Luis Figo, the El Clasico all those years ago with the pig's head lobbed at him. My thoughts on Leicester City. I mentioned it earlier in the live stream, but I know you obviously weren't here for that. I think what's going to happen here in the aftermath of this, we've got to wait for the air crash investigation to conclude, because 5 people did lose their lives, including the owner of Leicester. I think rules are going to be changed on what kind of helicopters are around sports arenas. Obviously, owner's helicopter. We obviously have media helicopters who fly around, and obviously the emergency services such as the police, fire and rescue, and air ambulance. I do think there are going to be rule changes made to what air helicopters can be around sports stadiums. Why is American football called football and the true football called soccer in the US? Okay. Right. Well, soccer is actually an English word, and it's an upper class word to distinguish association football, which is football or soccer, from a rugby union football and rugby league football. So both codes of rugby are also classed as football, as is Gaelic football and Aussie rules football, American football and Canadian football. So there are different types. So the CFL is Canadian Football League. The NFL is the National Football League, which is American football, which is slightly different to Canadian football. Then you've got Australian rules football, which is Aussie rules. And then you have Gaelic football, which is the Irish version of Aussie rules. And no, it's not. NFL is not basically rugby. There's a little bit of difference there because you've got rugby league and rugby union, and it gets really confusing now. Basically, the first association football was football, but because rugby football union is the RFU and the rugby football league is rugby league, they tried to come up with ways to distinguish the codes. So rugby, both codes are rugby, football, Aussie rules. There are a lot of rules governing the games. Now, the only time you can kick in American football is when your punt unit is out or your field goal unit is out. There are rules on that, whereas in rugby, any player can kick the ball, both league and union. There are no rules to say you cannot kick the ball on tackle one rugby league, and there are no rules to say you cannot kick the ball constantly forward in rugby union. However, a try must be scored with your hands, and the ball must be touched down in the dead ball area. Whereas in American football, all you've got to do is cross the dead ball line into the in-goal area, and that's a touchdown, which is bollocks because the ball isn't actually touched down. Yes, it's just how it's evolved. Yes, it has evolved out of, I think, more rugby league than rugby union. It's how sports evolve. I think, it's interesting question, but any kind of ball sport where it's not field hockey or cricket or baseball or softball or netball or basketball, so half the ball sports then are basically derived from football. They are. That's basically the where they derive from is one sport which is not quite the world game of football we see today, or soccer if you want to call it that, if you're from let's say Canada, US, Australia, New Zealand. They did sort of evolve from a game similar to that. Association football is what it is. Okay, the NFL itself and the CFL, if you've seen Canadian football, I suggest you check that out. It's a bit of a better version of American football. It's got one less down, so instead of having 4 downs, you've got 3, and it's a bit more running game. So it actually is a bit more like rugby in a sense. So just check out the CFL online, and you'll be surprised what you find. It's similar, but there are differences between CFL and NFL. A lot of differences, and of course you've got arena football as well, which is just and lingerie football, which is basically just legalized violence. It's not necessarily a weird sport if you're brought up with it. If you're not brought up with it, or you've never seen it before, and you see it for the first time, it can be a bit weird. It's more tactical than people realize. In reality, it's an exceptionally simple game to play, which suits the American fan base because Americans have a short attention span. It's known. The attention span of the US over other people is less because the amount of adverts they have on TV, they try, and that's why there's a lot of ad breaks in American football as well. It's just the attention span. It's not necessarily the weirdest sport out there. There are weirder ones. I find baseball really weird, but that's me. There are people who find cricket dull. I actually enjoy cricket, but again, it's subjective. I don't like basketball, and I've been questioning why I don't like basketball. I have played it, never enjoyed it. I never could get into it. I will casually watch, but I don't enjoy it. And that's, I think, again, a subjective thing. The NFL, again, I think 1962 is pre-Super Bowl era. So the NFL itself has evolved out of the merger of several leagues together and the evolution of the game and the equipment and the league structure and a variety of things. I think one of the reasons that the NFL has a mixed appeal, where some people don't like it, is the failure of NFL Europe and the fact that in Europe we have other major professional sports that already have established fan bases. And you know what they're called? Football, rugby league, rugby union, ice hockey. They're already here, Europe-wide. And people play them more. It is what it is. I think the NFL have done a very good marketing job on the London games. It would be nice to see them take games outside of London, around the UK. There are a lot of stadiums that could host an NFL game easily. A lot of stadiums in the Premier League and up in Scotland as well, with Celtic Park and Hampden Park and Ibrox. You know, they could host a game up there. It would be nice, but they're committed to the London area, which I think will anger some. Virat Kohli, Joe Root, Steve Smith. Well, Steve Smith obviously has had his troubles with the ball tampering. Joe Root has had his issues with being a really crap England captain, not going to lie. Virat Kohli, again, I think Joe Root, Virat Kohli, you know, they had an interesting test series this summer. I don't think either really came out looking great. If I'm honest, Virat Kohli did play better this time round, but Virat Kohli lost the test series and Joe Root just highlighted so many flaws with his game as well. It'll be interesting to see when Steve Smith comes back. The debate for me on that is open. I'm leaving that open. I'm not saying any of them are the best. There are so many issues within the game of cricket right now with match fixing scandals and corruption and players being linked to that. Cricket, again, it's objective. I think the marketing behind cricket and the way they're trying to grow the game, they're going the wrong direction with this 100-ball format that no one wants. The TV rights issue is what's harming it. It's a great sport to be involved in. I've played it. I've watched it. I've been to Lords. I've seen Test matches. I've been involved with the sport as a fan since I was a kid. The Mourinho situation, I do think there is a media fascination with him because of his relationship with the media. He's never really had a perfect relationship with the media, but there are issues at Man United. Now, it doesn't matter who you support right now. I think the situation, with Man United is much like Tottenham. They didn't invest in the transfer market effectively. I think Mourinho's tactics don't suit the players he's got. The squad he's got isn't as strong as squads in the past. But a lot of Man United fans are glory supporters, and they forget that in the 70s and 80s, that team was shit. Man United were crap in the 70s and the 80s. No league titles from 67 till 91. They did not win the league at all. So for a good 20-year period, they were crap. They were actually ended up in what is now the Championship. They were in the second division at one point. And a lot of young fans or fans post-1992 seem to think that before 1992, football didn't exist, or they don't look at the record books pre-92. Man United from after 1967 until the Premier League era were a terrible team. In the main scheme of things, they were a shocking team. And yes, they won the odd FA Cup here or there, the odd League Cup here or there, but for the most part, they were a terrible team. Then Sir Alex Ferguson comes along, and that team still wasn't great until again, the early 90s. It took a long time for that team to get good. And what Man United realised is they needed to keep faith with whoever they put in charge. Otherwise, they were never going to compete with Liverpool. They were never going to compete with some of the other teams like Aston Villa, Everton, and Leeds, who were better than them at the time. And it took them a while, and then they got good at the right time, which so happened to be the beginning of the Premier League era. They're not. They're not a team or a club that makes rash decisions, but I do think Mourinho's got to go. I cannot see him developing that team. They have got worse under him. What advice would I give to you? Live streams help. Get your channel set up for live streams. Do live streams once a week, daily. It helped me grow my channel in the initial phase of growing my channel. So do a live stream every now and then. Look at your data. I know it's getting a bit more difficult with the YouTube studio changing, but from what you can, look at your data, look at your analytics, and try and get from that as much as you can to work out where you're most popular. I'm very popular in the UK, obviously, because I'm British, but look at the other target audiences. So what leagues or what sports are really popular in those countries. And if you're a sports YouTuber, go, right, okay, let's do a video on the history of this sport or the history of this player or looking at this player's career or this manager or this incident. The live streams do help because it gives you an idea of what your viewers like to talk about and what your viewers like to discuss and to watch and the questions that they give. And it gives you an idea of the teams that they follow if you're a sports YouTuber, or the players that they like or dislike, or their view on a sport. Link it to your Twitter page if you can. Link it to your Facebook if you can. I used to link it to my Facebook, and then I realised a lot of my friends weren't interested in YouTube or in sport, so I realised I didn't want to keep bugging them. So instead, I just linked it to my Twitter, and I've gained subscribers that way. Live streams I think are the best way to grow, but also how you also do your titles. The title of your video, the way it's worded, is so crucial now. If you get one word wrong or different, the amount of clicks you get or the amount of times it's typed in, someone looking for that subject, is less. Also, if you do get monetized, if you get a word in your title that's deemed to be a bit on the side, you can have that video flagged. So look at the wording of your title, look at your description. Also on your channel settings, put down sports if you're a sports channel. That does help so much, because then it does help target the right audience. And just keep making content. And you've got to find a method that works, basically. You've got to find a topic that seems to be popular, or you've got to find a way of presenting that seems to be popular. And I find live streams helps. The Queen Elizabeth question is not really relevant to this channel, sports channel. The Messi better overall player than Ronaldo. Okay, at club level, they're about honours even. International level, however, Ronaldo has been to more finals and has actually won an international tournament. Messi hasn't. So on that respect, Ronaldo has actually lifted an international trophy. Messi hasn't. Club level, they're about honours even. Would I say they're both the greatest of all time? Probably not. I would still go for Pele. Pele, for me, greatest of all time. I don't care that he played in the 60s and the 70s, and people go, it's a different game of football. Yeah, he won how many World Cups compared to these two? A lot. He's the youngest guy, I think, to score at World Cup in a World Cup final. I think he played in 4 World Cups consecutively, or 5, or something like that. Basically, Mike Talks Football is a Hereford United supporter. He's battling to get monetized at the moment. He's got a lot more subscribers than me by a long way. I'm on a third. My channel's third as big as his. He is solely dedicated to football. He'll discuss everything football. He will discuss every footballing topic you can think of, from sackings, hirings, player transfers, corruption scandals, ticket prices, non-league football, league football, Champions League, Europa League, internationals, anything you want, he will talk about or he will research. His knowledge on the sport is there. I mean, he's knowledgeable about the sport. I think there are a lot of channels devoted to association football, because I'll call it that, because I don't like calling it soccer. I find it weird. There are a lot of channels devoted to the sport, but a lot of them are fan channels that focus on a club, much like another subscriber of mine, Kemmel. He's a Chelsea fan. Mike doesn't necessarily do videos on Hereford. He does videos on any club you want. If you tell him that I sent you, he sends subscribers to me. So it's I think I support him, he supports me. But no, honestly, Mike talks football. Again, he's in my channel list of channels that I like. He's in there. He's on my Twitter feed. I send him subscribers. He sends me subscribers. It's a win-win. We support each other. But because I cover all sports and he focuses on the one, again, it's a niche. Again, he's a guy to talk to with advice about how to grow your channel or how to make your channel better. We have some good debates in the comment section of my channel and of his. When I can catch him on a live stream, we've had some interesting conversations, and we've had some interesting discussions over the years, over the year or so. And I would advise, if you want to learn more about the history of football, or take advice on how to. Oh no, me, Kemmel and Mike have been having a competition for about 6 months. I was winning at one point, and then they both overtook me, and they're a bit further ahead. Obviously, Kemmel is solely Chelsea, so he has a target market. Mike is solely football, so he's got a bit of a wider audience than Kemmel, and I cover all sports. So in theory, yes, I could have the biggest audience of the lot, but it's so hard to cover every single sport and dig through every news article, every website, every book. It's frustratingly difficult to have the time, but I think again, it's always good to have that kind of competition to grow and help each other and compete. Kemmel, I think, is the same age as you, so he's a good guy to talk to about some of the struggles he's faced as a YouTuber. I think you guys can help each other so much, grow each other's channels and help each other in discussing things. Mike is a football genius. He knows so much about the game, including especially the non-league as well, which does get not a lot of coverage or press coverage. It gets seriously overlooked. He knows a lot about the non-league, an insane amount that even I couldn't tell you. And my dad used to play in the non-league, and I couldn't tell you a tenth of what he knows about the non-league. But there we go. I will say this. I will say this. I'm gonna wind this live stream up, because I'm gonna go and support Mike on his live stream if he's still going, and look in my channels list. Mike talks football, and you've got Kemmel as well. They're in my channels list of channels that I like. If you want to learn about how to be a good YouTuber, a young YouTuber, check them out. There's some other channels I could send you to as well, but I'm not sure if you like ice hockey or the NHL, and I'm not sure if you like WWE or not. And there's a couple of other channels that I know, who's actually a pen pal of mine in Canada. I could send you his way, but for now, I'll send you to Kemmel's channel and Mike's channel. Just tell them that I sent you, because they send me subs back as well. But anyway, I'm going to wind it down now. Thank you very much for all your questions. It was good to have you on, Laser. I appreciate, obviously, your input as well, because you've asked some interesting questions. And growing the channel, I was the top dog out of the three, and now I'm the bottom of the three. But it swings and roundabouts. I think I was glad to help them grow as well. We always get involved in each other's live streams if we can. I think we're moderators on all three channels as well, so it's kind of a good little community that we've got going, and it's nice that we support each other. And I will catch you guys soon, and I will see you guys later. Thank you very much for watching, guys. Really appreciate it, and I shall see you guys soon. Thank you very, very much. Some good questions tonight as well. Appreciate it. My bloody vape's gone off. I'll see you soon.